Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Orchard. I run Euromoney magazine, among other things, Global Capital. My first guest this morning is Minister Zdravko Marić of Croatia. Good morning, Minister, and welcome. You're smiling, and I think for a good reason. The Croatian economy has performed very well in the last year, recognised in your recent upgrade to BB+, so congratulations. You had GDP growth of around 3% last year. I think you have a falling debt to GDP ratio, now around 85%, and a very low deficit to GDP ratio of about 1%. What have you been getting right?
Right, yeah. Thank you for the intro. This is quite nice intro to our discussion. You pretty much summarized all the major economic financial news from Croatia. Last two and a half years have been quite successful. We managed to, I would say, put ourselves on the, I would say, sustainable growth path. Today, Croatia is growing at a rate of around 3%, which maybe if one compares to the, I would call it pre-recession time, one can conclude that this is a lower level. However, I sincerely believe that this is a much more sustainable, much healthier growth. Today, we are not, I would say, producing twin deficits. Today, Croatia is having a current account surplus.
Congratulations.
And as you also pointed out, we managed to do quite significant progress on the fiscal position. Since I took position of the finance minister together with my team and obviously as a part of the government, we recognize that this is, I would say, one of the top priorities to change. We have been seeing quite, let's say, steady growth of public debt in the recession period, and we wanted not only to stabilize, but already to start reducing the public debt. So in the 2 years, it came down roughly by around 7 percentage points of GDP, and this is something that we don't want to end up or finish, but rather to continue. Last year has been quite successful. We managed to end up year with a surplus on a general government level on ESA 2010 methodology, which is also quite good. And as you also pointed out, it was recognized by the rating agencies. At this moment, Fitch, just 3 days ago, upgraded our rating. We are waiting for the Moody's and S&P ruling later on in Q1. And for us, it was also quite important to exit excessive deficit procedure with European Commission, and now we are, I would say, in a much more, I would say, peaceful part of our economic development.
These are very enviable metrics. Tell me what's created them, what's generated the growth, and how's the government managed to get into surplus on the deficit?
Today, growth is obviously any growth model, I would say, in any country of the region, including Croatia, I believe needs to be very much focused on the investments, particularly combined and I would say topped up with a strong export of goods and services. You know that Croatia is having a very positive balance on the export of services because of the tourism. However, due to the fact that obviously we are full member of the European Union now for the 4 years, obviously we are also benefiting from the internal market. However, there is I would say, significant progress and a maneuver space to grow further. Mm-hmm. From the perspective of, I would say, production side, which activities are generating this growth, I would say we are seeing a strong performance last 2 years of the industrial production, which is good. Obviously, from one to another element of industrial production, there are differences. Retail is also strong. For us, very important that construction is also recovering because before the recession, we had a quite strong in some areas, in some segments like the real estate, we had even booming of the construction activity. Now it's recovering and growing. So pretty much, I would say all of the activities, obviously together with the tourism, are contributing to the growth.
How much of it is, sorry to interrupt, how much of this rosy picture is attributable to your joining the European Union, would you say?
Definitely there are benefits for sure, as I pointed out through the through the export segment, but also through the other means, simply our long, and I would say actually the longest path to the European Union in terms of the negotiation process, also brought us to implement various structural and other reforms in order to improve your economy in aligning yourself with the standards of European Union. And thus, obviously, it helped improving various segments of our economy. But as I said, as was the case with the export, I sincerely believe, and I'm completely sure, that there are much more, I would say, to come, not only from the perspective of us being part of the internal market, but also in the area of EU funds. Today, Croatia is seeing 2-digit growth rates in EU absorption. However, we started from the very low basis, as many other European Union countries, and in that case, you can definitely count on the better. But maybe also to come up, if you don't mind, on the fiscal position, you also asked me what are the reasons for the fiscal. Obviously, there are three pillar way of reducing public debt that we recognize. On the one hand is stimulating growth. The other one is something that we also call fiscal consolidation. But we didn't recognize fiscal consolidation as a pure, let's say, austerity measures driven model, but quite the opposite. Control over expenditure, I would say rational usage of your resources, but at the same time, much more efficient, I would say, tax collection. First reform that the government, when it took a position, made was a tax reform. That was something that was designed and created in my cabinet. The idea was, first and foremost, to start reducing taxes. Mm-hmm. Corporate income tax and personal income tax were the two prior, I would say, actions, simply because we recognize that in the direct taxation, the positive benefits back to the economy and the budget are most.
You perform the magic trick of increasing receipts by reducing tax levels.
Correct. Less is more. So by reducing taxes, actually, we widen the tax base. And if you see 2017, which was the first year of implementation of tax reform, corporate income tax was actually the one line item which outperformed most.
Well, congratulations on the excellent performance. There are problems, though, as well. Your central bank thinks, for example, that structural reforms are still urgently needed in Croatia. The IMF thinks, for example, that you're too dependent on tourism. And most commentators think that the informal economy is too large in Croatia. What are you doing about these three things?
Structural reforms agenda, this is, I would say, quite clear and no-brainer for us. These results that we are discussing, these are results that we are seeing in the last 2.5 years, but obviously to have them on the sustainable path, you would need, and we would need, and we will do certain progress on various elements. On the one hand, from the budget side, you do have segments which are, at this stage, not completely fiscally sustainable, and I mean primarily due to the, let's say, demographic trends, not only in Croatia, but throughout the whole European Union, including pure demographic balance supplemented by the migration case, as you asked my colleague from Lithuania, pretty much the same Croatia is also facing. So all these borders and let's say some kind of limits to the free movement of labor are now lifted. So there is always a certain challenge of the brain drain. But at the same stage, you need to act immediately. And I primarily mean on the healthcare system, which we need to put on the sustainable ground and to be fiscally sustainable. At the same time, public administration is something that I would say is a long-lasting story. I'm not the first finance minister telling you or any investor or any partner to Croatia that there is a need for the reform of this sector. However, we believe that we will be the first government to undertake and to implement this. So there are a couple of these quite important measures in the structure area which we need to improve in order to have our budget long-term sustainable. But at the same time, we are planning to continue with a quite strong focus on the improving of the business climate. Doing business, obviously, the report, which is quite, I would say, popular these days. But this ranking is a nice showcase and comparison with the other countries where you can improve and you can do better, because you can't resolve demographic issues, pension system, healthcare system, social security system without strong growth, without new and fresh employment, simply because there are no magic stick measures which will simply, let's say, change this. From the perspective of the tourism, I agree also with the quote that it's quite high ratio of tourism in GDP, but it's not matter and the problem with tourism, it's the problem with the other activities. That's why we are putting a strong focus on the different segments of economy in order to let's say, stimulate business activity and investment in this, because tourism today, we are counting roughly around 18% of GDP. Tourism statistics is always quite difficult. It's difficult to split between domestic and foreign guests to Croatia. However, we believe that with the tourism, we also have a potential to grow.
Great.
Because season is still quite short and it can be enlarged.
Minister Marić, as we used to say at school, you've been saved by the bell, so we're not going to talk about the informal economy because we've run out of time. But thank you very much for talking to us this morning. Congratulations on a wonderful story and the best of luck with the continued growth of Croatia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.